It is absolutely not the case. There is no man controlling traffic anywhere in the FAA today who is not qualified and perfectly capable of handling the traffic that he's required to do. We have a safety valve. Anytime there is more traffic than the controller can handle, even with limited staffing, aircraft are kept on the ground or delayed so that the controller is not overworked.
In the Dallas-Fort Worth facility, how many men do you have on sick leave today?
Well, a normal watch in our 3 facilities in Dallas-Fort Worth, the complement would be 101. We actually have 14 on sick leave today, but that does not mean that these men are participating in any sick out, because our norm would be in the neighborhood of 10 or 11. So that at the present time we may have a few more than normal. But I want to commend and compliment the controllers in this entire region for their support of the FAA and the public in reporting and maintaining their watches.
Coach East, not only the general contractors, but the mechanical contractors, the masonry contractors, the painters, and all the other types of contractors have unified to present a unified voice when it comes to negotiating collective bargaining agreements with the labor unions. They are a diverse group and we're a diverse group, and we feel that at last management has unified.
Well, then how in essence are you going to stop inflation?
Well, we hope to reach a more reasonable settlement at the bargaining table to create uniform working rules and conditions for all of the North Texas area, so that the carpenters can go to Fort Worth and work, and some Fort Worth carpenters can come over here. The various craftsmen would have more easy access and egress into the various cities to work. It would make a more competitive situation amongst contractors, and that they could bid more easily in Fort Worth and Fort Worth more easily in Dallas. So we think this will strengthen us at the bargaining table and let us speak harmoniously in good faith to reach the most desirous for both labor and management solution to our labor problems.
Well, that's true. I've been accused practically of everything, and as a fellow says, you name it, and I've been accused. But there's nothing whatsoever true maliciously what I done. I did a favor for a friend. That's all I did. I didn't have no connection with no bookmakers. I didn't know no but one bookmaker in my life, and that's down at home, and that's where I put the bet up for this friend. Is all it amounted to. But as far as being connected with big-time gamblers, I don't know none of them. I don't fool with none of them, don't make no bets with them, but I do go out on the golf course, and I make bets with friends on the golf course. I play gin and bet on the gin game with friends, and I go to the horse races once in a while. I've been to the horse track maybe 5 times in the last 2 years, and when you go to the racetrack, you go there to make a bet and have a little lunch and maybe a couple of good cold beers. If you play golf, if you don't bet, you ain't gonna get to play nobody, because everybody bets a little bit something on their golf game out there for a lot of fun. Going after the golf game, you go in and sit down at a table and play 2 or 3 rubbers of gin. That's the way everybody does in this country today. I don't think there's any harm in it whatsoever.
Do you think professional athletes as a whole are involved in gambling? Do they bet on themselves generally? Or?
I don't think so. I never known of a ball player or an athlete to ever go on a ball game that he's participating in and make a bet. I never heard of it. Never heard of one man doing it. I don't believe they'll do it. They got to be proven to me. Now, the ball player and an athlete, we'll say, comes involved a lot of times associating with people he don't know and never have met. And that's what has happened in the sports world today. I think all these people are innocent, and if they've done a mistake, it's been no fault of theirs by just people coming up and meeting them and saying something to them. And in other words, if a guy come to me in the World Series last year, and you or anyone else, and I didn't know what you know your business for, and you say, Diz, who do you like in the World Series? I said, well, I favor the Baltimore Orioles or the Mets, whoever it might be, for one reason. They got their pitching. This guy's rough, and that guy's rough, and that's why I pick them. So they'll go in and make a big story out of it, and the first thing you know, somebody's making big bets on it. So, old Diz, give me this tip.
Well, you'll never find Lloyd Benson endorsing these kinds of demonstrations or this kind of moratorium on the war. I don't believe that it contributes to an early peace. I think it stiffens the resolve of Hanoi. I think it hurts our negotiators in Paris to see this kind of a demonstrated division in our country backed by some of our ultra-liberal senators.
You mean then that you're against peace demonstrations or moratoriums?
I'm against the use of the office of the United States Senate to back demonstrations such as this when we're trying to negotiate and arrive at a just peace and trying to get our men out of Vietnam and trying to bring an end to this war. Certainly I recognize the rights of dissent, but for a United States Senator in that high a position to lend his weight to this type of thing, I think it hurts the cause of peace.
We've discussed the fact that the politicians and the government people and many of our leaders are interested in the arts. What about the average person? Does there seem to be a revival of interest in the culture of our nation?
Oh, it's fantastic. You realize that perhaps the most important barometer of citizen interest are the community councils, such as this wonderful one in Fort Worth. 20 years ago, the first one was started in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. There are now 600 in communities all over this country, and I think that's a direct relation of citizen interest in the arts, as well as the state commissions, of which there are now 50.
And we have contacted all of the agencies, state, county, welfare, that I'm aware of. In addition to that, several private homes which care for mentally retarded children. To date, we've been unsuccessful in really finding a place for this child to stay during the recuperation of the husband and his family.
The problem seems to be then in finding a temporary location for this type of child, not a permanent location. Then is this correct?
That's correct. The mother is very insistent that she wants to care for her child herself. She knows that this is her responsibility, and she assumes it. And she needs only 60 days of 24-hour care for her child. What are some of the problems cited by the private and public homes in providing this type of service? Apparently, in the public agencies, there's just not the mechanics, the laws, the authority set up yet for them to provide this type of care. The private agencies, most of them are full. The ones that are empty or have a vacancy, their rates are too high, and this woman cannot afford to pay these rates for the care of her child.
Mr. Scoggins, in the event someone wants to help in this situation, what can they do?
We've had 10 or 15 people who volunteered some time. Some people have suggested they could provide daycare, some weekend care, but nobody could actually meet the need. But if those who are interested would contact me, then I'd be pleased to direct this to the mother.
How can they contact you?
My telephone number is BL3-4121 in Irving. If you would call me, then I'll take care of the rest.
Ms. Hanks, under the Republican administration in power currently, it's been said that it started off rather colorlessly, and now things are picking up. How would you compare the state of the arts under President Nixon as compared to some of his Democratic predecessors?
Well, I never make comparisons. I think that the arts are wonderful now. I think both President and Mrs. Nixon are taking a real personal interest, not only in terms of the wonderful message that he gave in December on the arts, but the involvement of many of our cultural resources in entertainment and other functions at the White House. I think it's just grand.
Do you foresee more government participation in the form of grants and aids to cultural activities?
Oh, I hope so. The President has asked for a doubling of our funds for the arts, and the Congress is now working on bills to achieve this objective. I hope in a matter of 2 months that we will have success in this field.
As the past intended. The committee did not itself make an attempt to make a complete and independent investigation of the problem faced by DCCAC.
Well, I would hope that the city and county will accept it. It is a change. It demonstrates, at least if the county and the city can accept it, it represents that we are willing to listen to, express genuine concerns of the poverty representatives, that they need a larger group than the 9 that was going to be permitted.
Will you personally recommend it?
I will recommend it. I would have preferred that we could have had an approval of the city-county report. However, these variations, I think, would enable the most part and the purpose and intent of our city-county report to be applied.
Either report we accept. We're not crazy. We know what's going on. Either report we accept. We don't have no win, baby, so we're going to give it to you. But you're not going to pull nothing over here, so you can have it.
Do you feel that you had a boycott here, and do you think that this is going to be the beginning of a dropout of the poor in the poverty program?
No, I don't, Teal. I regret, as Reverend Lakey has expressed it earlier, that the target area people were not here in full representation, because that's the way a democratic board ought to operate. You don't accomplish things by not coming. But I'm sure that they'll be back, and that we'll get a board of 33 organized, and they'll be good, well represented from the target areas.
We, for example, some of us would be willing to donate easements. I would, for one, to our part of the property in the floodplain, to the city, to enable it to go ahead and have the park on both sides of the creek. And the plan does call for obtaining a park on both sides of the creek, not just their side of the creek. Actually, the entire ditch that some of these property owners mistakenly desire to have dug through our property here would be mostly damaging to our property and to the natural beauty for the entire city, as compared to their desire to protect themselves from a situation that they bought or built into by building in the floodplain. They want the taxpayers to pay for their protection without any damage being done to their property by digging a ditch through it.
All of the points that Mr. Evans refers to as far as inadequate coverage or loss of targets are now covered by the overlap we do have between the two radars. In fact, we have one of the finest and probably the only system in the United States where we have the capacity of two radar systems that the controllers can use interchangeably to counteract any atmospheric conditions or problems that may exist at a given time. We had a demonstration out there last Monday and Tuesday, and the system will be completely operational by the 7th of April, whereby the flight plans that have all been handled mechanically in the past will be handled entirely by the automation system. Now, we had one exercise with the military involving Barksdale, where 1,141 flight strips were processed by the computer in a matter of 40 minutes. There's an interesting thing on this sick leave situation, that we're in a posture right today where we have actually fewer people out on sick leave than we would have in a normal period. And this is a great tribute to our people, because we know for a fact that some of them are going that extra mile, not that they're sick and coming to work, but they're making extra efforts to cooperate and to provide the service that is required. And we feel very appreciative of that kind of spirit.
I feel that when we moved into the area, that it was not a flood area. This has been brought about by the growth of the city. Since the city is responsible for my flooding situation, it's my opinion that the city has a moral obligation to protect our homes in this area.
Are you against the preservation of the natural ecology of the area and the trees and the other natural beings that, animals and such, small animals?
Oh, absolutely not. The fact that when we moved into our home, there was not a single tree in that yard. Today we have 21 beautiful towering trees that are reaching toward the skies. We love the beauty, we love the nature, and that's why we selected that area. But this can be protected by channelization, and the beauty will not be destroyed. We've seen that same thing here in Dallas before.
What can we do about crime in the cities, or why
Well,
is it so higher in the cities?
crime has always been a city pattern. The criminal pattern, as we call it, is characteristic of the city. First of all, the city is very selective of age groups. And you have a tremendous concentration of the young, shall we say, from 17 to 26, and crime is a youthful type of the robber, the thief, the very aggressive individual who can be a successful criminal. I'm not speaking of crimes of passion. It tends to be very young, and this particular group are concentrated in city settings. And since our population has become ever younger, and our population generally, of course, has grown, we have a reflection of this in an enlarged crime rate.
I think we're going to have to bring the scientists, the doctors, the psychiatrists, the people that have the answers to a lot of these questions, get them on a team that is going to have to call on law enforcement, public officials at the local, state, and federal level, the people from the medical profession, the young people themselves, reformed addicts, people who can tell the story, can tell it like it is, that speed does kill, that these drugs are going to ruin these young people's lives. We're going to have to take a very serious look at our criminal code of procedure as far as drugs are concerned. I'm for changing the penalty provision as far as marijuana is concerned, because I think by using a misdemeanor to punish these people, we can bring about swift punishment instead of 12 and 18 months delay. We can probably have a deterrent effect on these kids immediately, and maybe get them out of the drug arena rather than talk about sending them to the penitentiary. But we're going to have to toughen our laws on our pushers. Texas is going to have to become known as a state that's tough on pushers, and when I mean tough, I mean as severe penalties as we can develop in this state for people who are selling these drugs to the young people. We not only need children and young people education courses in drugs, we need adult education. And particularly we need our public school teachers, the people who deal with these children's lives each day, to have exposure to education in drugs and narcotics. And I'm going to propose a one-day education program where every school teacher in Texas will have an opportunity to have exposure to the things the states are doing, the thing that we need to do in informing our young people about drugs. If something happened and the federal government abandoned this center, I think it has a very important and vital role to play in the future of treatment and rehabilitation in our state drug program. Dr. Jernigan and his very fine staff here are people that we could not afford to lose. Their talent cannot leave Texas. We need an institution such as this in our state framework.
Governor, this for a long time has become obvious has needed a champion. It's not going to be a popular position, and it's going to take a tough man who makes some unpopular decisions among some people until they get to the point where they understand. Are you willing to take that role?
Well, Bob, I don't think in 1970 that this state can afford leadership in any high public office that's looking at what's politically popular. We're going to have to do what's right, and attacking this drug problem is the right thing to do, and it's one of the most important problems in our society today. And I don't care about the political repercussions. I care about these young people that are using these drugs and the lives that it's destroying and what it's doing into our society, and that's what my concern is, and not what's going to happen at the polls.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
On Easter Sunday, this department store is closed, not mandatorily, but rather as a matter of choice. When the state of Texas passed laws prohibiting consecutive Saturday and Sunday opening of certain businesses, a new corporation was formed which, on paper at least, bought all the merchandise of this store and others like it and sold it under the corporate name of Sundeco. The Tarrant County District Attorney's Office went to court and won an injunction prohibiting Sundeco from opening. District Judge Walter Jordan ruled that the store must close either Saturday or Sunday. The Second Court of Civil Appeals has now overturned that ruling, saying that the presumption of the law is that Cook Sundeco has done nothing illegal and does not intend to anything illegal. The case now goes back to Judge Jordan for another hearing. Barring any further legal action, this store will be bustling with spring shoppers come next Sunday. Art Sinclair, Channel 8 News, Fort Worth.
I think the renovation of the downtown area of Dallas is extremely attractive. The high-rise buildings. There are also very many beautiful homes. I think there needs to be a getting together of people at different levels. I think there's too much cleavage within the city itself. A very wealthy concentration of people who are interested in their particular neighborhood rather than the city as a whole. And ghettos and should we say, concentrated poor areas that need renovation. However, this is true of many other cities. Dallas is perhaps closer to northern types of cities in its structure compared to, say, Houston and other Texan cities. But the problem is not true only of Dallas. It is happening all over the world. And I think saving cities is part of saving civilization itself in a way.